Have you ever truly seen someone? Not just glanced, not just dismissed them with a convenient label, but truly looked beyond the surface, beyond the quiet demeanor, into the vast, unspoken landscape of their potential. Toronto, a city of towering ambition and relentless hustle, often celebrated the loud, the brash, the self-proclaimed visionary. It was a city where Mark, an entrepreneur whose confidence often outpaced his acumen, thrived on the illusion of grandeur. Marissa Chen, at 32, was Mark's antithesis. She was a product designer, meticulously crafting beauty and function, not with a fanfare, but with the quiet dedication of a true artisan. Her apartment, warm with the scent of roasted coffee and the soft glow of her meticulously organized desk, was a sanctuary of genuine creation. Mark, however, saw only the absence of a splashy public profile, the lack of a relentless, self-aggrandizing pursuit of fame. He saw her understated elegance as a lack of drive, her measured words as a failure to declare her greatness. The evening he broke it off, the city lights outside their high-rise window seemed to mock the intimacy that had once been. Mark's jaw was set, his eyes narrowed, reflecting a man already moving on, convinced of his own superior trajectory. "Marissa," he began, his voice surprisingly devoid of genuine emotion, simply stating a perceived fact. "You're good, incredibly good, at what you do. But you're too comfortable with mediocrity. You don't chase the spotlight. You don't hunger for the empire. I need someone who breathes ambition, someone who wants to conquer the world, not just design beautiful apps for it." His words, delivered with the blunt certainty of a man convinced of his own prophetic wisdom, struck Marissa not with the force of a blow, but with the icy precision of a surgeon's cut. She felt a profound sting, not of rejection in love, but of being fundamentally misread, her very essence reduced to a flaw. She stood there, her hands clasped loosely in front of her, her face a mask of calm composure that belied the churning storm within. The quiet dignity with which she accepted his judgment seemed, to Mark, to validate his assessment. She didn't argue, didn't plead, didn't even raise her voice. She simply nodded, a silent acknowledgement of his departure, and watched him walk out, leaving behind a profound emptiness that was less about him, and more about the crushing weight of being so utterly misunderstood. The echo of "too comfortable with mediocrity" hung in the air, a phantom accusation that began to slowly, meticulously, fuel a silent resolve within her. It was a quiet vow, not of revenge, but of undeniable self-validation. Days blurred into weeks, the sting of Mark's words gradually transforming from a raw wound into a hardened resolve. Marissa found solace, not in commiseration, but in the unseen depths of her work at a renowned venture lab. This wasn't a place for the brash and loud. It was a crucible of nascent ideas, a vibrant ecosystem where quiet brilliance often shone brightest. Her role there, ostensibly as a mentor, was far more profound than the title suggested. Marissa delved into the heart of struggling startups, not with a judging eye, but with the keen insight of a master puzzle solver. She'd spend hours poring over lines of code, dissecting business models, and listening intently to the whispered anxieties of founders. One afternoon, a young team, their faces etched with despair, presented a product riddled with a fundamental design flaw that threatened to sink their entire venture. Other mentors offered superficial critiques, suggesting minor tweaks. Marissa, however, sat quietly, observing, her gaze steady and unwavering. Then she spoke, her voice low but clear, cutting through the noise. "The problem isn't your interface," she began, tracing an invisible line in the air. "It's your foundational user journey. You're asking them to take 3 steps when one would suffice, creating unnecessary friction." She then sketched out, on a simple whiteboard, a revised flow so elegant, so intuitive, that the room fell silent. The founders stared, then exchanged incredulous glances, a dawning realization illuminating their faces. Marissa didn't seek applause or credit. She simply offered the solution and stepped back, allowing the team to absorb it. This quiet efficacy hadn't gone unnoticed. There were subtle nods from the seasoned venture capitalists who frequented the lab, fleeting glances of admiration from the powerful figures who truly shaped the industry. Elena Vargas, a titan in venture capital known for her shrewd investments and discerning eye, often lingered near Marissa's desk, observing her at work. Marissa, hoodie pulled low, often blending into the background of the bustling lab, was a hidden engine of innovation. Her motivation wasn't about proving Mark wrong, not yet. It was a deeper, more intrinsic need to validate her own approach to creation, to build, to solve, to bring order from chaos, driven by an unshakable belief in the power of well-designed solutions. She was a silent architect, laying the foundations of her own future, brick by meticulous brick, in the very heart of the city that had once dismissed her. As Marissa steadily, quietly, wove herself deeper into the fabric of the venture lab, Mark's seemingly triumphant star began to show faint, then glaring, cracks. His company, Innovate Flow, initially hailed as a disruptive force, was becoming a cautionary tale whispered in hushed tones across Toronto's tech scene. Marissa didn't seek out news of his struggles, but the city was too small, the industry too interconnected, for it to remain a secret. She'd overhear conversations in coffee shops, see fleeting headlines scroll across news feeds, painting a picture of an empire teetering on the edge. Mark's poor leadership wasn't a sudden descent, it was a slow erosion. He was a man who led through bravado, not collaboration, through declarations, not dialogue. Projects missed deadlines, not by days, but by weeks, then months, as key engineering teams became disillusioned and departed. Employee turnover at Innovate Flow became alarmingly high, a revolving door of talent fleeing a toxic environment where ideas were dismissed if they weren't his, and concerns were met with arrogant indignation. Marissa saw the irony, a silent echo of his cutting words. He had dismissed her as mediocre for her quiet pursuit of excellence, while his loud pursuit of grandeur was built on a foundation of shifting sand. While Mark was busy on social media, curating an image of unassailable success, Marissa was quietly dissecting complex problems, identifying root causes, and implementing sustainable solutions for the startup she mentored. The contrast was stark. One building a fragile edifice of ego, the other constructing a robust framework of genuine value. Whispers of missed investor targets, of dwindling cash flow, began to circulate with increasing frequency. Investors, once eager to back Mark's charismatic vision, were now growing antsy, their patience wearing thin. The initial buzz that had surrounded Innovate Flow had curdled into a palpable sense of unease. Marissa observed it all with a detached, clinical eye, devoid of malice, but keenly aware of the opportunities such collapses could present. She understood that true innovation often arose from the ashes of spectacular failure, particularly when that failure stemmed from a lack of true leadership rather than a lack of potential in the product itself. The stage was being set, not for a personal vendetta, but for a strategic intervention, a moment where quiet competence could finally rectify public chaos. The quiet brilliance Marissa harbored found its true validation not in public accolades, but in the discerning eye of Elena Vargas. Elena, a figure whose reputation in venture capital preceded her like a powerful tide, had been observing Marissa for months, a silent, almost imperceptible shadow. The moment of true unveiling came during a particularly fraught pitch session at the Venture Lab. A promising AI startup, struggling with an insurmountable technical hurdle, had presented their woes to a room full of exasperated investors. The founders, brilliant engineers but poor communicators, couldn't articulate the core of their problem. The atmosphere was thick with frustration, investment opportunities visibly slipping away. Marissa, sitting quietly at the back, had listened intently. When the room fell into a frustrated silence, Elena, with a subtle nod, prompted, "Marissa, you've been quiet. Any thoughts?" Marissa stood, her movements deliberate and calm. She walked to the whiteboard, picked up a marker, and with a few deft strokes, diagrammed the complex problem in a way that suddenly made crystalline sense to everyone in the room. Her explanation was precise, devoid of jargon, and startlingly insightful, pinpointing a single elegant architectural flaw that had eluded even the expert consultants. The solution isn't another layer of code, she concluded, her voice steady and clear. It's a fundamental restructuring of your data flow. You need to simplify the internal communication, not add more external complexity. A ripple of understanding, then admiration, passed through the room. Elena Vargas's eyes, usually cool and analytical, held a flicker of profound recognition. Later that day, Elena sought Marissa out. Her office, usually a whirlwind of high-stakes calls, was unusually quiet. "Marissa," Elena said, leaning back in her chair, her gaze unwavering. "Your insights are not merely sharp, they are foundational. You see the core, not just the surface. We've been watching you closely. You possess a rare blend of strategic vision and empathetic leadership. We're not looking for mentors anymore, we're looking for leaders. Someone who can take the reins, not just advise." Marissa felt a profound jolt, a sudden rush of validation that surpassed any public applause. This was true recognition, from someone who truly understood the subtle architecture of success. Elena's words hung in the air, a silent promise of something vast and challenging, a chance to move beyond mentorship into the realm of true executive power. The seed of Marissa's future, once merely an idea, was now beginning to germinate, nurtured by the discerning gaze of a true visionary. The seed of Marissa's ambition, nurtured in the quiet halls of the Venture Lab, suddenly found fertile ground in the dramatic collapse of Innovate Flow. The whispers had grown into shouts, the headlines now screamed of a company in crisis. Mark's grand venture, once a beacon of his unassailable ego, was now a public spectacle of failure. News reports detailed financial distress, mounting debts, and a mass exodus of what remained of their most talented engineers. The initial enthusiasm of early adopters had evaporated, replaced by frustrated complaints about buggy software and non-existent customer support. Mark, in a desperate attempt to staunch the bleeding, lashed out, publicly blaming market conditions, ungrateful employees, and even the short-sightedness of his own investors. His arrogance, once his shield, now became a magnifying glass for his flaws, alienating anyone who might have offered a lifeline. He was a man drowning, still proclaiming he could walk on water. The inevitable announcement came swiftly and brutally. Innovate Flow was officially up for sale, a distressed asset on the market, desperately seeking a buyer. The narrative described a company gutted from the inside, a shell of its former promise, its once innovative product, now considered a liability. For Marissa, learning of the sale wasn't a moment of vindictive triumph, but one of calculated strategic clarity. She saw not Mark's downfall, but the potential buried beneath his ego-driven rubble. She knew the core technology of Innovate Flow, despite Mark's mismanagement, held genuine promise. It was the leadership, the culture, the very soul of the company that had withered. Her mind immediately began to spin with possibilities, envisioning how she could strip away the toxicity, rescue the viable assets, and, most importantly, redefine its purpose with integrity and genuine user value at its heart. It wasn't about revenge, it was about redemption, for the company, for its employees, for the very idea of honest innovation. The failure of Innovate Flow was not an end, but a beginning, a blank canvas upon which Marissa could paint a new vision, proving that true value was built with quiet diligence, not shouted from the rooftops of an ill-managed empire. The chessboard had been cleared, and Marissa was ready to make her move. The acquisition of Innovate Flow was an intricate dance of secrecy and precision, choreographed by Marissa and Elena Vargas. Marissa was the architect of this silent takeover, working tirelessly with Elena's legal and financial teams. The first step was the creation of a shell company, deliberately opaque, designed to mask the identity of the true buyer. Marissa oversaw every detail, from the preliminary due diligence to the rigorous analysis of Innovate Flow's assets and liabilities. She sat through endless calls with lawyers, her quiet voice cutting through legalese, asking incisive questions that surprised even the seasoned financial advisors. Her understanding of the tech, the market, and the human element of a failing company was profound. The dramatic irony of the situation was a constant, almost palpable presence. Mark, unaware of the identity of the mysterious buyer, was negotiating the sale of his life's work to the very woman he had dismissed as comfortable with mediocrity. He attended meetings with the shell company's representatives, unaware that the quiet, discerning questions being relayed back to their principal were coming directly from Marissa. He was desperate, haggling over pennies, trying to salvage what little pride and capital he could from the wreckage of his ambition. Marissa's motivation remained clear, devoid of bitterness. She saw Innovate Flow not as a symbol of Mark's failure, but as a challenge, an opportunity to implement her philosophy of sustainable growth and empathetic leadership. She believed in the underlying technology, in the potential of its remaining, demoralized employees, and in her own capacity to cultivate a thriving environment where talent could flourish. This wasn't merely about buying a company, it was about reclaiming a narrative, proving that true worth lay not in aggressive posturing, but in quiet competence and unwavering integrity. The negotiations stretched over weeks, a tense, delicate ballet of offers and counteroffers. Finally, after one particularly grueling session, the terms were agreed upon. The papers were drafted, reviewed, and signed in a sterile, silent conference room. The acquisition was complete. Marissa, sitting in her discreet office, looked at the signed documents, a profound sense of quiet accomplishment settling over her. She was now the silent owner of Innovate Flow, the architect of its future, and the stage was set for the most dramatic unveiling of all. The air in the Innovate Flow offices on the day of the new ownership announcement was thick with a nervous, almost desperate anticipation. The remaining employees, gaunt from months of uncertainty and Mark's erratic leadership, huddled together, whispering conjectures about their anonymous new corporate overlords. Mark, too, was present, forced by a clause in the sale agreement to attend this ignominious ceremony. He sat in the front row, his posture rigid, a picture of defeated pride, likely expecting some faceless corporate executive, another suit in a long line of suits, to deliver a sterile, pre-written speech. The interim CEO, a somber-faced lawyer from Elena's firm, stepped onto the small stage. "It is with great pleasure," he began, his voice dry and formal, "that I introduce the new owner and CEO of Innovate Flow. She is a visionary, a leader, and someone who believes deeply in the potential of this company and its people." A hush fell over the room. Then, the lawyer gestured towards the side entrance. Marissa Chen walked in. She was dressed simply, professionally, her quiet elegance a stark contrast to Mark's often flashy attire. Her step was steady, her gaze calm yet powerful, carrying an undeniable aura of authority that was both understated and utterly compelling. A collective gasp rippled through the room. Mark's face, initially frozen in expectation, contorted in disbelief. His jaw dropped, his eyes wide, his entire body language screaming shock and utter humiliation. The woman he had discarded, the woman he had labeled mediocre, was now standing before him, not as an old flame, but as his new boss. Marissa's eyes met his for a fleeting moment, a silent acknowledgement of the seismic shift in their world. Then, she turned her gaze to the assembled employees, a warm, empathetic smile gracing her lips. Her voice, when she spoke, was clear and resonant, filling the room with a quiet strength that instantly commanded attention. "Good morning, everyone," she began, her gaze sweeping across the anxious faces. "My name is Marissa Chen, and I am honored to be your new CEO." She paused, then addressed Mark directly, her voice calm, devoid of any hint of malice, yet sharp with undeniable truth. "Mark, you once told me I was comfortable with mediocrity. What you mistook for mediocrity was patience, observation, and a deep conviction that true value is built with quiet dedication, not merely declared with loud ambition. You failed to see the strength in stillness, the power in the unseen work. The words hung in the stunned silence, a definitive declaration of a new era. Marissa then turned back to the employees, her voice filled with hope and a clear vision. This company has extraordinary potential and extraordinary people. We will rebuild, not with bravado, but with integrity, collaboration, and a relentless focus on true innovation. Welcome to a new beginning. The room, once tense with fear, now stirred with a burgeoning sense of hope. The tables had not merely turned, they had been meticulously reset, and Marissa Chen, the overlooked virtuoso, stood at the head of the table, the undeniable leader. With Marissa Chen at the helm, Innovate Flow, now subtly rebranded as Nexus Solutions to signify its new direction, began its remarkable ascent from the ashes. The transformation was swift, profound, and rooted in Marissa's core philosophy. Genuine value is built from the inside out. Her leadership style was a stark contrast to Mark's chaotic reign. She didn't dictate, she empowered. She didn't micromanage, she trusted. Meetings, once tense monologues from Mark, became collaborative discussions where every voice was heard, every idea valued. Marissa implemented flexible work hours, mental health days, and an open-door policy that fostered genuine transparency. She dismantled the silos that had plagued the company, encouraging cross-functional teams and open communication. Employees, once demoralized and cynical, found themselves re-energized, their creativity unburdened by fear. Small victories accumulated rapidly. Bugs were systematically squashed, customer complaints drastically reduced, and new features, based on true user needs and Marissa's insightful design principles, began to roll out seamlessly. The positive buzz around Nexus Solutions grew louder, spreading beyond the tech community to the wider market. What about Mark? Marissa, in an unexpected move that spoke volumes about her character, had offered him a temporary consultancy role, ostensibly to facilitate a smooth transition, but implicitly, to allow him to witness her success firsthand. He stayed, a ghost in his own former kingdom, forced to observe the very company he had nearly destroyed, thriving under the leadership of the woman he had so arrogantly dismissed. He watched as the employees he had alienated now radiated enthusiasm, as the product he had mismanaged finally delivered on its promise. His initial humiliation slowly morphed into a grudging, almost painful, respect. He saw the integrity he lacked, the quiet strength that built, rather than merely claimed. Nexus Solutions, once a symbol of failure, became a testament to Marissa's vision. The company's growth wasn't just about revenue, it was about culture, about rediscovering purpose, and about proving that true success was cultivated through collaboration and respect, not through individual ego. Marissa had not just bought a company, she had resurrected its soul, proving that the most powerful leadership often comes from the most unassuming places. Months later, Nexus Solutions stood as a shining beacon in the Toronto tech landscape, a testament to what true leadership and quiet perseverance could achieve. The company, once teetering on the brink, was now profitable, innovative, and a highly sought-after employer. Marissa Chen, no longer the overlooked product designer, was now a respected CEO, featured in industry publications not for her bombast, but for her quiet, transformative success. Her office, once a transient space at the Venture Lab, was now a calm, purposeful sanctuary within the thriving Nexus Solutions headquarters, adorned with the plants and minimalist aesthetic she always loved. She often found herself reflecting, looking out at the city skyline, its glittering towers a constant reminder of ambition, both misguided and true. The notion of mediocrity, once a painful accusation, now seemed a distant, hollow echo. True mediocrity, she realized, was not in the absence of a loud declaration, but in the absence of genuine effort, integrity, and the willingness to truly see and cultivate potential, both in oneself and in others. Elena Vargas, her initial catalyst and now a steadfast partner, often visited, her usually stoic face softening with genuine admiration. "Marissa," Elena had remarked during a recent strategy session, "you didn't just turn a company around, you redefined what leadership looks like in this industry. You proved that true power isn't about being the loudest voice, but about being the most impactful one." Mark, now having transitioned out of his consultancy role, sent her an email weeks later. It was brief, almost terse, but contained an undeniable shift in tone. "Marissa, I was wrong," it read. "What you've done with Nexus is remarkable. I truly underestimated you. For that, I apologize." It was a small concession from a man who had once embodied relentless self-importance. A silent victory that affirmed Marissa's journey was never about revenge, but about the undeniable power of self-worth. She had not only reclaimed her narrative, but had also subtly, profoundly changed the narrative for others, demonstrating that the hidden gem, once unearthed, could shine brighter than any proclaimed star. She was no longer just a hidden virtuoso. She was the acknowledged architect of her own destiny, a leader who embodied the profound truth that true value resided within, quietly waiting to be recognized, cultivated, and finally, unleashed. Have you ever looked at someone, perhaps even yourself, and felt a quiet potential simmering beneath the surface, waiting to be seen, waiting to be acknowledged? Marissa Chen's story is a powerful reminder that true strength often doesn't roar, it whispers. It builds, brick by meticulous brick, in the quiet solitude of dedication and integrity. Her journey from being dismissed as comfortable with mediocrity to becoming a silent, then undeniable, force of leadership teaches us a profound truth. Worth is not measured by the decibel level of one's ambition, nor by the superficial gleam of public perception. It lies in the depth of one's character, the resilience of one's spirit, and the quiet, unwavering commitment to excellence, even when no one else is watching. Marissa taught us that the most impactful transformations often begin with the most humble, overlooked individuals, those who possess a hidden brilliance waiting for the right moment, the right opportunity, or simply the right discerning eye to truly see it. She didn't seek to prove anyone wrong through a public spectacle. She simply chose to prove herself right, through actions, through results, and through building something genuine and lasting. Her triumph was not just about a company's turnaround, it was about the redefinition of success itself, shifting the focus from ego and flash to substance and empathetic leadership. So, the next time you encounter someone quiet, someone seemingly in the background, remember Marissa. Remember that the loudest voices aren't always the most effective, and the most extraordinary talents often reside in the unassuming, patiently honing their craft, preparing for their moment to truly shine. Share this story. Comment below with your own experiences of being underestimated or witnessing quiet triumph. Let us remind each other that true value is an intrinsic, enduring light, often found in the most unexpected places, patiently waiting for the world to finally catch up and truly see.